For those of you new to my channel, I generally like to talk about something general every day, if I can. I call it stupid things, again, just because I can. And I wanted to talk about this film for a little while now, but haven't had the chance. This is The Dark Crystal, which is a Jim Henson film from the 80s. It's not the strongest story-wise, but man, is it a mystical, creative marvel. The visuals and the effects and the creations, it's beautiful to look at. It's so creative and so inventive. Every creature had to be made. This world is unique. The story is a little thin. Essentially, the main character is a gelfling named Jen. He's the last survivor of his race. It is his duty to get a crystal shard and put it in the Dark Crystal, which the villainous Skeksis are... They're in charge. They are... I think they worship it. It wasn't entirely clear what their connection to the Dark Crystal was, but that would defeat the Skeksis and return life to their world. He's got to do it before the three suns touch, which I think is a connection to Christianity. Three suns. So he doesn't have much time. He meets another gelfling named Kira. Both of them think that they're the only ones. And it's essentially get the crystal shard into the Dark Crystal before time runs out. Again, there are not too many twists and turns. It feels a little bit like a Star Wars knockoff in elements of it, but with more of a fantasy Last Unicorn feel to it. Yeah, I would definitely say it's Star Wars meets The Last Unicorn. It definitely has this relaxing, nostalgic, hippie feel to it. It's very, very relaxed as a film. It's actually a little long there. It's a bit repetitive, so the gelflings come across something, there are obstacles, they're chased down by the Skeksis and their henchmen, the Garthim, which I can never remember the name of them. Honestly, it's a kind of a creepy looking film at places, particularly with the design of the Skeksis, who are these villainous vulture-like creatures, and the Garthim, who are these crab-like henchmen, and those things are so creepy, and I love it. They're terrifying to look at. They're standing on these many legs, and they look like giant horseshoe crabs, and they're relentlessly pursuing the main characters. It's really, really cool. And they're puppets. The puppeteering, funny thing is, some of you may know that certain kinds of puppets creep me out, and I definitely get that vibe with the Skeksis, but the creativity really sucks me in. The creativity of Jim Henson's puppetry and animatronics and the world, I always find fascinating. I like his puppets a lot. This is definitely the general consensus. The one-sentence review is style over substance. The story's thin, but man, is it a beautiful movie to look at. There's one thing that has become an inside joke with me and the friend I saw it with, because one of the Skeksis, who is more the weak link of the group, he has this sigh that he does. He does it 14 times. My friend counted. 15 because he does one twice. But I'm going to say 14. 14 individual sighs of, If you know the movie and you've seen it recently, you'll know what I'm talking about. Funny thing is, I first saw this movie years ago. I actually found it pretty boring and couldn't get through it. Now, I went to a screening. They were showing it locally, which is pretty cool. And friends of mine really wanted to go. So I went. And I am glad I saw it. Again, strictly for how creative this world looks, because they have a bunch of different creatures, some of whom never have any effect on the plot, and they're just there for establishing shots, but every single thing had to be designed. And it's impressive. Funny thing is, I read up on it, and the main characters they're more humanoid, and their faces don't change nearly as much as some of the other puppets, which is a little strange, but they're cute. And again, I get this really nostalgic feel from this film. This really nice, beautiful, relaxed fantasy world that's, yeah, again, just kind of I think the best elements of hippie beliefs from that era. Being relaxed and fighting off the bad parts of yourself, keeping the good, while essentially finding your place in this world and finding something that you're supposed to do. Well, it's another one of these prophecy chosen one stories, but I got a bit of this. It's a vague enough story that you can interpret quite a bit from it. And one interpretation is that whenever a Skeksis is individually destroyed, the wise old mentors of the Gelflings are hurt and destroyed too. So there's a connection between good and evil. You get a sense that you can't really have one without the other. And I found that a very interesting idea. It's also a very dark movie. You see, so the Skeksis are trying to live forever, rule forever, and they drain other creatures of their life essences. And there's some pretty dark, creepy scenes where they do that. It's pretty unsettling, but it's also, I never felt like they were doing it for shock value. I felt that for the story that they were trying to tell, and again, not everything comes off, but I could see, but it is another dark counterbalance to this world. As well, the world also has this very happy, relaxed, peaceful element to it. It also has this very dark, corrupt, evil side to it as well. What with the Skeksis and their draining life essences, and how innocent creatures get exploited. So, yeah, I feel like there's commentary in there. But the tone of the film, I think, is balanced, because I don't like stuff that's too saccharine or too bleak, and I felt like this one was in the middle. Again, Labyrinth is kind of the same thing. It's a mystical, incredible, creative world, but it's also something that's very dark and creepy and brooding. I like that balance. So it was, overall, I would say this film, it is an experience, even if you can't really get into the story. The story's not the strongest part, and I'm generally a big story person, but I really do appreciate the creativity of this world. I love every design. I'm having fun on the journey. I think it is a little long at times, and there aren't too many twists. It's very straightforward, but it has this very fantasy, fairy tale-like feel. Very Alice in Wonderland. Characters go on a journey, they encounter something, they move on. It's very linear that way. I know it's a cult classic. So I'm really, really glad I saw this movie. I'm really glad I watched it all the way through. I personally did take a lot out of it. I'd be curious as to other people's thoughts. I know this film's a cult classic, especially among Henson fans. And I'm a very casual Henson fan as well. I really admire and respect his work. And I'm a huge Labyrinth fan. I'd say that's my favorite Henson piece. Though I do like the Muppets. I like the Muppets. Funny thing is, I never had this super nostalgic connection to them the way other people did, but I do like them a lot. Same thing with Dark Crystal. I didn't grow up with this film, but I really can respect it for what it is, and I really do like the artistry. Fun film, very creative. I see why people remember it. I see why people like it. But I can also see where some people would get tripped up with it too. fun film.